Hello, once again, welcome to the Road to State House, where we continue to talk to people who have a vested interest in becoming the next president of this country, including, of course, the incumbent who is at the moment staying at State House. And to uproot him, well, you need all the muscles to do so. In the program today, my guest is political presidential aspirant going solo in this race to State House. Tamsir Jase, welcome to Road to State House.
Thank you very much for having me, Malik.
Why do you want to contest the presidential 4th December?
The reason I want to contest on this election is that Gambia is at a point in which we need to change the direction in which the country is going. We have been on this road for too long, and we have seen clearly that we are not heading to the direction that we want. It is time for all Gambians who wish to participate in the political process to step forward. I am one of them.
And you're going solo?
Not quite going solo. At the present moment, it may appear that way. However, we are in the process of registering a political party.
You have not yet registered yourself as an independent candidate, by the way.
No, I haven't.
Not yet.
I've simply made the declaration.
That you want to contest the elections?
Yes.
Either independent or within a party framework?
It's going to be within a party framework.
Okay.
And the name of the party will be Our Homeland.
Our Homeland. Good. Now, tell us why you think you can make a breakthrough. Do you think you can make a breakthrough, by the way?
The intention is to make the breakthrough. And I have every reason to believe I can make the breakthrough.
It's clustered, by the way, with some parties that have been there for a very long time, entrenched in the political system. And when you look at the demography, they tend to have the muscle in the areas that make the president.
If I want to look at it from that perspective, I will simply go home and forget about it. And I do not intend to look at it that way.
All right. All right.
I intend to look at it from a different perspective. There is work to be done in this country. Gambians are looking for that person who can do this work, who can articulate their position, who can explain to them how they're going to bring about the change that we so badly desire. That is what I intend to do, talk to the Gambian people, get my message across. And I have every confidence in the Gambian people that they will pick wisely. You see, you've talked about those entrenched. You've talked about those who have been in the political field for so long. This is exactly why they're not going to make it. You know, the difference here is, what we need now is someone who will be looking at it, not from a political standpoint of simply wanting to be elected, but a person who's more practical, who's been a technocrat, who can come in and actually deliver on the promises that are being made, who has a strategy to deliver, and not only empty promises in manifestos and all sorts of nice words. We have a solution, and it's a Gambian tailored solution for the Gambia.
How are you going to sell that solution? How are you going to sell it?
We've started selling the solution.
What are you telling the people?
Exactly what I'll be telling you shortly in our interview.
Good. Corruption is a canker in our system, and every Gambian right now is crying about this very deadly virus called corruption. It will be one of your it's going to be a trump card in your hand if you want to sway people to Our Homeland, the party you envisage to run in the race.
This is exactly right. Corruption is actually the #1 national security threat to the Gambia. And we have a plan to address that. First of all, what we need to do is to ensure that people who have been identified as engaged in corrupt practices are actually prosecuted. There has got to be enforcement of the law. There must be consequences. As long as people believe there won't be any consequences, they will continue to see a pattern of behavior. There must be punishment for the crime, and through the courts, that is. Number 2, we have to start looking at our financial instructions, the FI. Right now, what we have, it's outdated. It has not incorporated the modern ways of financial control and the technology that's available in order to crop that corruption. Our government intends to do exactly that. And one of the other things that we are targeting is to continue the transaction, financial transaction, whereby we will eventually eliminate the handling of physical cash. Once that is done, you would realize, like other countries have done, that the corruption would be cut to a level whereby it will become manageable at from that point on, and we will continue to fight it. However, at this point, it is a cancer. You call it a virus, I'll take it a little, I'll make it a stage higher. It's a cancer in our society. There is absolutely nothing anyone can do now to change any aspect of Gambian society unless you address the issue of corruption. Recently, in COVID-19 case, we spent $2.2 million to transport 3 boxes of containing the COVID-19 vaccines to the Gambia from Guinea-Bissau, something that I could have done for free in my car. This is the sort of corruption. These are the ones that we get to know. But it's obvious there are thousands and thousands and thousands of them going on every day in every aspect of Gambian life. And the Gambian people are tired of it. They have seen how that has affected their lives. And I am sure that once we send our message across to them of how we're going to tackle this cancer, they will jump on our bandwagon.
You're talking to me as if you're talking in a Gambia of a utopian entity where everybody is educated, where everybody is a learned person. You should remember also that 65% of the Gambian population are non-literate people. And you're talking about e-transactions, e-money, and stuff like that. That would be a mammoth task for you. Education should have been should have preceded that.
No, I disagree.
All right.
I think you have underrated the Gambian people.
Okay.
You see, there are the infrastructure is already in place and it's actually being used. When we go out to the Western Union to receive a transfer, that's e-money. The same way I received it, that was sent to me in the e-fashion, so can I spend it in the e-fashion. We now have AfriMoney. We now have Q-Money. The government needs to utilize these platforms. The government need to utilize what is already available in country and what other nations have done and build it to that level. Everyone in this country now is on Facebook. Everyone is on WhatsApp. Everyone is on Family Group. This is the basic, simple technology that they use every day that could be that will definitely be incorporated in the financial transactions. We must not think that they are uneducated, they may not know what we're talking about. No, I travel across the country on a regular basis nowadays, now that I'm in politics, and I have come to realize that we have grossly underrated the Gambian population in their understanding of technology and how it could be used on a daily basis. We are also underrating them in that they may not understand the level of the corruption. They may not understand, of course, the technicalities of how the corruption is taking place, but they're feeling it. And he who feels it knows it. They know. They may not use the word corruption, but they will use tapale. Tapale gi dafa bari. They know what corruption is, and they're tired of it. It's affecting their lives. And they are looking for someone to change that.
What do you see that is wrong in the system that your party will want to make amends?
Everything needs to be reformed. The Gambia had an opportunity back in 2016, and there was great expectation from the people for that change. It never happened. We are now scratching our heads, walking around and asking ourselves, what happened? What went wrong? What went wrong was the train got off the tracks. We need to bring the train back on the tracks. And how do we intend to do that? We intend to do that by identifying every sector: education, agriculture, health, security, energy, environment, all of these sectors, the economy, public, foreign relations, and all of that, and actually employ veterans. We would open an opportunity with veterans of that sector, active participants of that sector, including the young who are technology savvy, to form a reform team for each sector. This reform team is to review what is in that sector, what needs to be done to bring about change within a short period, such as the first 100 days in office, what would happen in the 6 months, 1 year, and 3 years. And once all of these teams come together in their sector, and they will do it simultaneously, review the sector, prepare the groundwork and the costing and everything, and identify the sources of funding. They will present this to our government. Our government will take this collective work and call it our strategic direction. This is where the direction as a nation that we'll be going. And you can go online and follow, if you're interested in education, what should be happening, when it should happen, whether it has happened or not. You can check with the economy, you can check with the security, you can check with the foreign policy in any area. You see, the fact of the matter is that governments have all the time set themselves up for failure. We have always expected the political party to step forward and have all the answers. No political party has all the answers, and we are not claiming to have the answers. What we are claiming is we have the strategy to get all the answers from the Gambian people. You, Mr. Jones, may not know this, but you've been earmarked as someone who will be sitting at the reforms for information technology. People like you have a tremendous amount of institutional memory. So it's in every sector. There are Gambians like you in their sector who are equally versed. We need to bring them on. One of the things I realized when I was working with the SSR team is that the experts that came in from other countries told me the biggest problem is they have not found a Gambian-led strategy for change. We have to have a Gambian-led strategy for change in every single sector. And in every single sector, Allah Almighty has blessed this nation with the right men and women, boys and girls, to do that. We must look for a government that would coordinate and facilitate that process to create something that belongs to all of us, from all of us. That's why we call it our homeland.
I am seeing, I have interviewed, I think you're the fourth independent candidate or one who's talking to me solo, not on party basis. But you all seem to have the same agenda. There's a duplication of agendas here. Education, I'll fix the health, I'll fix the economy, I'll fight corruption, I'll do this and I'll do that. It all seemed to be it's sort of a stereotyped kind of attitude towards the elections come the 4th and what you're trying to say to Gambian people. Do you have something different? Do you have something different? Something strikingly different. I have listened to all of them.
Had you listened to me well, you would have picked up the strikingly different approach that I have just presented to you. We are going to set up teams of each sector, not from our party, but from Gambian professionals who would look at that sector, identify what's wrong with the sector, identify what needs to be done to improve that sector in the short term, intermediate term, and long term.
Okay.
Identify the funding. One thing where I'm different with the rest of them is that I'm not saying we are going to do it. I mean, I'm going to do it. I'm saying we are going to do it. Because that's the only way we can move forward. There are too many Gambians outside of the spectrum that need to come in, and only the government can create that opportunity and environment for them to come in. And these positions are paid positions. They're not just, we're not asking anyone to do anything for free. All of the resources that have been squandered in the past 5 years could have been better spent had we choose to pay Gambians that have the capability to do it for the Gambian. It will be Gambian-led for Gambia. What we have had is a lot of foreign experts who come and do not understand the political terrain, do not understand our social setups, do not understand the problems that are not written anywhere else, but we all feel it as Gambians. You need a Gambian-led solution, and this is what we want to provide.
You sat in the SSR, that's the security sector reform, and I'm sure you must have seen some striking indicators showing what went wrong here and there. What is alarming about this security service sector in this country that your government, if you come to power, will change?
The political will to change is what is lacking. I participated in the SSR through the United Nations Development Program in this country. I was one of those people that was tasked with writing the community policing strategy and implementation plan, which is a national thing. I was also contracted to write institutional policies for the Gambia Police Force and the Immigration Department in order to prepare this to institutions to be reformed in a total, in a wholesome base. And there are other documents that have been written, of which foreign experts came in and assisted in that process. There is one thing that isn't there, the political will to implement it. There is no political will to implement it. This is exactly what motivated me to want to get into the political field. Because I have come to the realization that with the vast knowledge that is there from people from all walks of life, it is the politicians that have the last say. If they're not interested, you've just walked for nothing. I want to be among those who would actually implement. Not only would I participate in writing the document, I would actually have the political cloud in order to push for those reforms.
Give me a few things that you found out that were not right in the security sector, which you actually made recommendation for a change.
For instance, political interference in the security sector, the police. Politicians, of course, you cannot divorce policing from politics. You cannot divorce anything from politics. Politics, like they say, there is politics in everything, just more profound.
Even in your house, there's politics.
With your wife, it's politics.
Of course.
But the fact of the matter is that there has got to be a certain level of independence from the security forces in order to operate. If, for instance, the Inspector General of Police believed there is some substance in Kodole, he would go and investigate Kodole without fear. If the president is to ask to arrest Mr. Jones, President better tell me what Mr. Jones has done wrong with the evidence that he is to be arrested. Otherwise, I will look the president in the face and say, Mr. President, I cannot do that. Because the law. You see, the president should not instruct the Inspector General of Police. It is the law that instructs the Inspector General of Police. This is what we need to understand. So therefore, what is happening is that since the past 22 years during the Jammeh years, there hasn't been much of training and development of the security services in terms of their human resource. Had that been the case, there would have been instances in which people would resist. I resisted when I was working in the police because I know the consequences of my actions through training that I had. That hey, if I do this is what's going to happen to me in the end, and I'm not going to do that. And also, when you train, you have a better value of who you are and what you do in the institution. Once we remove the political interference to a level that is acceptable, then I think then we begin to employ the right people. And before we do all of that, Mr. Jones, we have to go back and address corruption.
You're watching The Road to State House. My guest is Tamsir Jasseh, another aspirant to the journey to State House come the 4th of December. And under the party, Our Homeland. I like that name, Our Homeland. And, well, we wish you luck anyway. We hope that the party sticks anyway. If it doesn't, go on. You can still work out becoming, going solo into the race. There are requirements that you have to fulfill according to the IEC vis-a-vis the acquiring of these registered voters cards. How far have you gone in that?
In terms of
5,000.
Yes. We are in the process of doing that.
Oh, okay.
We've spent quite a number of days lately in the provinces, crisscrossing certain parts of the country.
Okay.
As we talk to people, as we sell our ideology to them, our ideology of change to them, we are collecting those signatures as we go. The signatures is really not a problem at all. In fact, that's the easiest part of the whole exercise.
Are they listening to you as you do this collection of voters cards?
Very
signatures?
well.
They're listening
Had
to you.
I had the chance to show you some of the meetings that we've held. You see, we have a different strategy. We do not believe in rallies. Because when you conduct rallies, you may have a crowd, but you cannot be certain that they are listening to you. But when you go from household to household, bantaba to bantaba, community to community, NACO to NACO, taxi garage to taxi garage. You are talking to people, and you are at that particular moment addressing the very issues that affect them. If I were to meet with a group of journalists, I will be talking about what interests them as journalists, what can make their jobs better, what would give them the satisfaction of being a journalist in the Gambia. When I meet with women in the NACO, I know I identify what their problems are because I let them tell me what their problems are, and then we formulate solutions to those problems. This is the strategy that we are using. This is a completely different age. When you look at the people in provinces, you come up with a certain strategy. When you move over to the urban area, you use a different strategy. It's not a one-size-fits-all anymore. You have to be specific, you have to specialize in the groups that you're talking to because they have different needs and different aspirations and require different solutions to their problems.
987,454 eligible voters in the coming elections. That's what we have as we speak right now. 987,454
I understand.
registered voters.
I know.
KM and Brikama administrative area are perceived to be the kingmaker in the demography of the Gambia's elections.
Yeah.
If you get 40% in this area, you become the next president. You think you have a stronghold?
We have started building the stronghold to a point that we are encouraged by what we see. Recently, we've been to Brikama, Manduar, and we just came back. That's the 4 years. We've been crisscrossing that area, and we were welcomed by the people. And we, like I said, we did not go as in trying to have a rally. We went from household to household, bantaba to bantaba, group to group, and the message is the same. And the effectiveness of this strategy is that people talk to you one-on-one.
Okay.
And they remember what you tell them. Whereas when you stand on a platform in a rally, you cannot tell who's listening to you and who isn't. But when you're in that group and you start talking and somebody else is talking there, somebody asks them to be quiet. They control the place for you. You have a chance to get your message across. Just like I'm talking to you one-on-one now. This is how we are doing it. And we have identified our strongholds and have actually, we're empowering the people that are there. Because what we want to do is that when we feel like we've conquered a place, we come up with a strategy to keep the place. We just don't walk away from it. And we build upon that. And I have something to tell you, Mr. Jones. You're going to be surprised. It's going to be simple.
I love that. We're always surprised come the 4th of December. I'm not trying to dissuade you, nor am I trying to say, Mr. Jassy, I'm afraid that you will not make it. But don't you think it's rather premature for you and some other young politicians I'm seeing? I'll call you young.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, of
That's very
course.
nice of you. It's been a long time since they called me.
I will call you young politician. Don't you think 10 years to come would have been much better for you?
Mr. Jones, there are 3 things that shape my personality.
I'm listening.
I've been to Mecca.
And so do I.
I've been to war. I've been to prison. I don't embark on anything unless I'm willing to go through with it. These experiences, especially the war and the prison, had taken the toughest toll on my life and that of my family. I don't play with anything that would in any way, shape or form put me back in those situations. I don't want to go back to war. I certainly don't want to go back to prison. But in these areas, I learned what it is to be a human being. I learned what it is to make up your mind with something and just move with it. I learned how to just ignore the voices you don't want to hear and focus on what you want to do. I learned that I am created by the same Almighty God that created every president in this country and in the world. I am from the same Allah. And what He has in store for me, no one knows. And no one can take that away from me. And if I don't get up and do what they call the Sabbath, I would never know. I'm going to do this sabbath until the last very day. I am determined to move.
There is a picture that you must be aware. The way the politics of this country is running is how much women you can take by your side, give them ashabi, cook the benachin, give them money, let the drumming and dancing take place, and the votes are yours. It will take us time for us to move away from that. And naturally, at the end of the day, what we see is that those who entertain that kind of politics usually emerge as winners of elections. I might be wrong this time round, but it's something I want you to remember on the
May
4th
I
of
comment
December.
on that statement?
Please go ahead.
The most powerful being that we know is Almighty Allah.
Very well.
When it dawned on Allah that Muslims should stop drinking alcohol, he just didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, stop drinking. There was a phase in which to wean Muslims off drinking alcohol. Those Gambian women you're talking about have reached a point in which, on one hand, they still enjoy the ashabis and the drumming, but on the other hand, they're looking for a change that's meaningful. So why don't I give them both? Give them both. Give them the change they want and the ashabi they want.
Okay.
That's our strategy. Because you cannot just turn around and tell them, forget the manner in which you were politicking and do this. They'll not listen to you. So you take it phase by phase.
I haven't seen your bank account, but politics needs a lot of money.
Yes. Politics
And you have it.
needs a lot of money.
And you have
But
it.
guess what?
You have it.
It's not your money.
Whose money is it?
It's the people's money. You raise funds.
All right.
You cannot. No one can dip into their pockets and finance a campaign.
Okay.
You depend on your supporters and your sympathizers and other fundraising events in order to raise the funds. If you're going to sit there and wait until you have the money to run, you'll never run. No one will ever run.
What's the strategy?
Nothing's gonna run.
What's the strategy for our homeland
In terms of fundraising?
in terms of fundraising?
I mean, I cannot go into
No,
details of it.
because someone may
Of course,
want to
we'll start
hijack.
real quick. Real
All
quick,
right,
because
all
everybody
right.
is looking for that
All right.
money.
All right, let me take you to one very key issue that most Gambians are talking, and that is the sovereignty of this country. A lot of people are not happy with the state of affairs. They think that, well, when I talk about sovereignty, I'm not only talking about the security, but even in the economy play out, Gambians are marginalized in terms of their involvement in the economic, how the economy of this country is running. You have so many outsiders who are playing the part that Gambians should have been playing right now. Some people say they cannot enter into business, they do not have the finances, they do not see a friendly bank that can give them the money, like a merchant bank that gives them, let's say, 2% or 3% or 4% interest rate. Now they go to the bank, you want a loan, the collateral is there, the 24% interest. These are all things that Gambians are crying on a daily basis. They think that they've been outwitted in the economy of this country. What is your take on that?
Okay. You've mentioned two things that I will have to separate in order to deal with them. You've mentioned the issue of sovereignty, and now you've mentioned something that's more economic. What do you want? Where do you want me to start? Sovereignty?
You have your you have your viewers.
Okay. We're going to start
Yes,
with
this is the
something about this
president.
nation.
This is the president to be.
Okay. Here we are. I'm going to say this on your show for the first time in my life. I'm going public to say this, and I swear to the Allah that created me and created everyone. When the impasse started, President Mahama of Ghana was tasked by ECOWAS to write a strategy for ECOWAS, for economic forces in Ghana. President Mahama, who was then an outgoing president of Ghana, turned to a popular relation firm in the United States that most African presidents use. they did not have a Gambian specialist on their staff. One of their vice presidents, who was a former U.S. ambassador to the Gambia, recommended that they talk to me. Him and I wrote this strategy for ECOME to come and leave the Gambia. I have the document with me here right now in my house. It is not my personal document. I had done it on behalf of a company who did it for ECOWAS, and therefore I think if I should ever hand it over, I will hand it over only to the President of the Republic of the Gambia. But in our discussions during that, creating that strategy, there were great concerns that we limit the number of Senegalese troops that would be part of that team, because it would seem like a Senegalese occupation. And we decided that we would sprinkle, so to speak, Nigerians, Ghanaians, and a few others to make it look like ECOWAS. This was happening while President Barrow probably had no idea what was going on in the background, that I was in my bedroom on Zoom actually working with a group trying to prepare this document, which gave me a first-hand understanding of what's going on with ECOME and being in the Gambia. And we were concerned about Senegalese, the level of Senegalese presence. And this was echoed by some of the former ambassadors who actually work for the company, who are now retired and work for the company. We created the strategy, and it was on my recommendation that we brought in the King of Morocco and the President of Guinea-Conakry. When they asked me why, I told them I have heard Jammeh himself refer to them as his in-laws, and in-laws are very influential on us as part of our culture, and that they should incorporate these two people. This was why the King of Morocco came. It was based on my suggestion. I have the document with me. And one of the things that I received a call after President Barrow flew in back into the Gambia on the Senegalese airplane. Do you know what they told me? They said it was better for Barrow to come back to Gambia on a Gambian bicycle than to actually fly in a military plane. There is a language there, and they were too naive to even understand what that meant. You see, Barrow was installed, so to speak, and he who installs you controls you. There are many people who complain about the presence of Senegalese troops in our state house. President Barrow seemed to have absolutely no trust for the military and our security forces. And he has decided to mortgage his regime security to foreign troops. Sooner or later, they will leave. Mr. Barrow should have, since 2016, tried to carry out the security sector reforms. There are some within, some professionals, foreign experts, whom I had met during SSR, who actually went to the extent of saying that Senegal would derail any efforts for Gambia to develop its security because they want that continued dependence from Mr. Barrow. And they have, some of the time, they use intelligence that we have fabricated to give a false sense of fear on things that weren't actually happening. But as naive as they were, as Mr. Barrow was, and probably the team that was around in terms of security, they fell for it. This is why today we are where we are. ECOME has no reason for being here. We should have used that opportunity since 2016 to reform our security forces and put the nation into their hands. There is no nation that can boast of security, of sovereignty, when your security is in the hands of foreigners. You can't do that. Now we go to the area of
the economy.
The economy. There was can you refresh me?
I said in that question that most Gambians are being marginalized
okay. Thank you.
in the economic activity of this country.
I have done some research because one thing we need to understand, Mr. Jones, there isn't a single problem that Gambia is experiencing that other nations haven't experienced. And they have solutions. Their solutions may not be a one-size-fits-all, but it could be modified. For instance, Ghana had the same experience. Ghana created a law that said only Ghanaians can engage in retail trade. Foreigners can bring in wholesale, they can bring in manufacturing.
As importers.
Yes. That is one of the things we're considering. to create an environment, a business environment in which at least retail trade would go back into the hands of Gambians. You know what that does? It's going to bring down commercial real estate costs down, because now retailers don't have to compete with Indians, Chinese, and other probably Europeans and other nations and other nationalities who may have more capital to spend than them. It Gambianizes it, brings it to our level where we can handle it. Number one. Number two, we have to understand that there are things that had worked for us, and we need to bring it back. This is part of our what we call our post-COVID-19 economic recovery. You remember NTC?
Yes,
We're going to bring it back. You remember the GPTC? We're going to bring it back. You remember the GPMB? We're going to bring it back. You remember Jahali Pacha? Probably it was here before we were born. We are going to make sure it happens. It's not in the manner in which it happened, because times have changed. But we're going to utilize modern ways of doing things by using the very Gambians that have the knowledge to do it. It's going to be Gambian-led for Gambian people. This is going to be part of our economic recovery. We're going to bring back all of those systems, and we have already started talking to who may be potential partners. You see, the thing about it, we do not under any circumstances wish to appear like we're anti-foreigner. We are not. We need foreign investment. We need foreign partnership. We need them to be part of our lives. But we need to also understand that we cannot allow an outsider to come and displace me in my own home. The government has an obligation to protect Gambians, and we would look at what other nations are doing so that we'll be in line with what's happening in the world. We're not trying to be so crazy that fingers will be pointed at us. Whatever we do, there are nations doing it and it's working, and we will just use it in a Gambianized form. So it brings me back to my point. If you expect me to sit here now, or if anybody listening to me expect me to sit here and come up with an airtight solution, that's not going to happen. But when we entertain Gambians who have this expertise to come and bring it on the table, when we walk out of the room, we're going to walk out with a solution. And that's what we intend to do.
The issue of a merchant bank and your take on the high interest rates that the 999,000 banks in the Gambia, sorry for the metaphor, are asking.
Yeah, it's not a 500-meter kabatri, I understand.
Right? What would your government have done? I mean, for me, 24% interest rate for someone to do business is...
It's killing you before you even get started.
I'm telling you.
All right.
It's like when you get into a taxi with a meter. The moment you step your feet in the car, it's already charged.
Your wallet is empty before you even get to the house.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I am a financial specialist. But I have enough understanding of things because I've made the research. I've asked people who are experts in the area. And the first person I remember talking to that actually told me that these problems are actually artificial. That's the term he used, artificial. Was the former governor of the central bank, who was a personal friend, childhood friend of mine, who passed away.
Clark?
No. Famara,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Famara told me in his office that, because I was concerned about what was going on. I was running a business at Independence Drive, Banyu Terrace restaurant. And he told me that the banks are too fluid, they're too liquid. There's too much cash sitting in the bank. The more cash needs to leave and get into the hands of people for projects, for business ventures, for other things. What they need to do is to come up with a system in which banks that lend out at least should feel satisfied that they are protecting their loans. He's saying that as a nation, if we are to sit with the best minds, we will come up with a solution. This is not God-sent problem. This is Gambian created problem. Which takes me back to our concept of actually getting Gambians who know what to do to come up with a strategy in order to solve our problems. This is what our government wants to do, facilitate. We are not looking to rule. We are facilitators to solve the problems. That is an area I am sure had we the best minds, with the political will, we would come up with a solution that will work for all of us, eventually. It may be a tough pill to swallow in the beginning, but it's one that is going to cure us. And we need to start taking the medication.
The incumbent will be running the race just like you. And in order to bring your opponent down, you must look at his performance and criticize where he's gone wrong in order to convince the electorate that you would make amends. Where has Barrow gone wrong in his 5 years?
I think the first point is that when he made the promise of the 3-year period and he betrayed that.
You mean that makes him untrustworthy?
That made him untrustworthy. However, a person like me, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because I would not appreciate having an unelected president just because an elected president wants to keep a promise. They should have just gone for the 5 years. That would have solved the problem. That would have stopped the bickering that has happened, that derailed the entire coalition process. And now we are paying this huge price that we can't afford. So that was ill planning on their part. So I'm not going to put it entirely on Barrow. But you see, Mr. Jones, if I were to get involved in journalism or anything dealing with public relations and so on and so forth, and I see you in the room, I am satisfied that you have something to offer. I've looked at your record. I've looked at where you've worked and what you've done. So yes, I could easily be convinced that, yeah, you can play a role. Mr. Barrow had never worked for any government in his life. He had no idea what government was. He still to this day doesn't know what government is. We set ourselves up for failure. Barrow, from a different perspective, I have argued with some of my colleagues that maybe Barrow was the right person after Jammeh, because he was not a direct victim of Jammeh. He wouldn't have the anger for retaliation, and his period would be used as incubation to ease the minds and seek for forgiveness from one another and get back on track. Had it been someone who had suffered directly from Barrow, I'm not too sure whether it would be as smooth in terms of no retaliation. So sometimes let God play his role. And I think I appreciate the fact that he was the one who became president, a man like him at least, who was a direct victim. That would give us the time to ease the angers and then realize that the nation comes first and reach within our hearts forgiveness. Because that is going to be a requirement.
When our homeland is registered, you become political party number 19. 19 political parties and 4 independent candidates vying for the presidency. This is unprecedented. Are you surprised?
There is one thing they say. To regulate unusual circumstances, you're going to have to use unusual means. If you look at the history of the Gambia, 30 years with Jawara, 22 years with Jammeh, how many is that? 52 years.
52 good years.
52 years. Look at where we are. And you know why? Now you can add Barrow's 4 or 5 extra years that really hasn't given us what we were looking for. So that takes it to 58 years. We're not happy with what had happened to us for 58 years. I want to see more political parties. I want to see more people jump into the game, because you know why? Gambians will now have a better chance to pick whom they want. If the merrier, the better. The better choices would be out there. Instead of just settling for 2 or 3, we're setting up ourselves for failure again. Some people, I don't know whether you want to jump into that issue of coalition. We've just seen what happened to one. If that is we have to be extremely careful to ensure we don't repeat history. We don't want to repeat history. And if you're going to form a coalition with someone, it has to have some kind of political capital to put on the table. Right now, if anybody approaches me and say they want to form a coalition with me, I will laugh at them because they don't know my political standing. I have not made that known. Before I stand and talk about coalition, I'm going to be in a position in which I can let the whole Gambia know what my political standing is before we even discuss that. Let's not force for a coalition unless it is well thought out. Otherwise, just as we just focus on removing Yami, we want to focus on removing Barrow with the wrong person.
Where is the strength of Tamsir Jase as a political party or as the flag bearer of our homeland? Where is your strength? What can you tell me? This is what I have, and with this I can march on to State House on the 5th of December?
Nothing but my record. I have served, first of all, when you look at my educational background, I have a master's degree in terrorism and homeland security. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I have a graduate certificate in public administration and a second graduate certificate in justice studies. I served as Deputy Inspector General of Police. I served as Director General of Immigration. I was contracted by the United Nations Development Program to develop documents for the security forces. At no point have I been known to be a violator of rights in this country when I served. Those who served with me and those who heard about my service, and the whole country did, I did what I was supposed to do. I followed the law. I enforced the law. I have a record that I can run on. I know how government works. I was a member of national security, where every single aspect of Gambian governance was discussed. I know how government works. I lived outside of the Gambia. I have seen how government works. I worked in those governments. I served for 10 years in the United States military. I know what organization is. I know what the rule of law is. And I know what it is to love your people.
So with that behind you, you can present yourself to the electorate of the Gambia and they'll vote for you.
Mr. Jones, my surprise was that at least 65% of the people I met that I met during the tours that we did, that I never knew in real life, told me, oh, we've heard of the name. We have some great things about the name, but we never met the man. Now here is the man. They tell me, we can trust you based on what we've heard. This is what I need to build upon. I cannot climb a 500-meter tree. I do not go into the, I'm not so brave that I would go into the cemetery and dig up dead people and put jujus in their mouths. That is not my mentality. I work on my record, what I did for the Gambia before I even have the audacity to stand and ask to be elected to the office of president. I worked for the Gambian people and I did a good job. They told me so themselves. And I'm proud of that.
You've seen a lot of, or you've heard a lot of mudslinging on social media by party militants from different political parties at various stages. Now, I don't know, does this breed a good citizenship? Or can I say, what is your take on social media and the mudslinging?
Mr. Jones, like everything else, there's the ideal situation and there's the reality. There isn't a single country in the world that doesn't have mudslinging in their politics. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. We should not encourage it. We should continue to criticize it and try to suppress it. That should be a continuous effort. However, we must be very naive to think we're going to achieve 100% of that. We can bring it down to a manageable level. It's just like crime. You cannot eliminate crime 100%, but you can bring it to a level that is manageable. This is what we must look at. We, our party, we are not involved in it. And we do not ask our party militants and supporters to be engaged in it. But I'm a politician. If NPP want to sling mud with UDP, hey, I'll sit back and watch. This is my political advantage. So is it for everybody who is in the political field. It's their weakness. And I'm going to take advantage of that weakness.
Okay, we haven't got much time, as is indicated, but what would be your last word? I'm giving you the chance right now to campaign in 1 minute.
What I will tell the Gambian people is this. We have reached a point in our history in which we looked at other nations and we have realized, to our horror, that we are lacking behind. And it is time that we create the environment, open up the opportunities so that together as a people, we will come to do for us what other nations are doing for themselves. Let no one tell you they have the answers by themselves. No one does. It is going to be a collective effort. Our intention is to create a government that brings in the best among Gambians in every sector so that they can formulate solutions to our problems. We know our problems. We created them in the first place. We have the solutions. I ask every Gambian to please recognize the fact that this is not a time to be a Mandingo. This is a time to be a Gambian. This is not a time to be a Wolof. This is a time to be a Gambian. This is not a time to be a Jola. This is a time to be a Gambian. This is not a time to be any tribe. And I have not mentioned every tribe because I'm running out of time. But let's put tribalism aside and look at the Gambia. This is not a time to even have party affiliation to a point that regardless of what your party says, you support it. This is a time to be objective, realistic, and understand if we don't save this sinking ship, we all go down with it. I appeal to every Gambian. Listen to every one of us who come here asking for your votes. Ask them the questions that you must. Have an understanding of where they're from in terms of their ideology and where they intend to take it and how they do that. And what would be the end result for you. Ask yourself what's in it for me and what's in it for my nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamsir Jase, for your time on the road to State House. We wish you the very best in your, registration. We'll look forward to that. We will be there to cover the registration, of course. We'll always be there to come to your press conferences and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Well, that was Tamsir Jase, a political aspirant. We will get you informed. The party, our homeland, we will get you informed when the party becomes registered. He's been my guest on the road to State House. From me, Malik Jones, goodbye.